Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Nitesh.
सर आपके सर वो लास्ट जो असाइनमेंट के जो सॉल्यूशन है क्या सर प्रोवाइड प्रोवाइड करेंगे सर?
जो प्रोग्रामिंग वाला था,
नो, रॉक रॉक मैकेनिक्स वाले, ये स्लोप स्टेबिलिटी वाले।
स्लोप स्टेबिलिटी का सॉल्यूशन, ठीक है, आई कैन प्रोवाइड दैट।
ओके सर।
ओके। Okay, guys, welcome back. 21 in attendance. We'll wait like 2 more minutes, 1 more minute. We'll start then. So, I understand कुछ problems हैं live काम करने में, because last time also we faced कि you guys are not very able to basically do both of the things together, right? Application wala bhi और hearing wala bhi. I mean, MATLAB साथ में करना while hearing it might be a little bit challenging. I understand that. So what we will be doing now in computer applications, let's put the programming part only restricted to labs. So lab will be on Thursday, right? तो थर्सडे को जब हम लोग लैब करेंगे तो थोड़ा ज़्यादा टाइम लेके वी बिकॉज वी टेक अराउंड 2 hours और 3 hours अराउंड दैट. सो वट एवर द लाइव प्रोग्रामिंग वन वी डू वी विल डू दैट टाइम. ओके. अब हम क्या करेंगे इन कंप्यूटर एप्लीकेशंस इन रेगुलर क्लासेस वी विल मूव ऑन विद सम सॉफ्टवेयर्स विच आर यूजफुल फॉर कंप्यूटर various applications in computing like blast design or mine planning or slope stability analysis or ventilation. So the things we discussed in the first lecture, that what are the various things we can do. So some of those based on software availability, based on licensing issues यहाँ पे जो हो रहे हैं अभी. So the present situation is some of the licenses that we had in our department, those are not renewed. So one of the challenges we are facing is that it is not like easy to basically work on that regularly. Some licenses have to be renewed, so they all expired in July mostly. So process is going on, so I think they will be done. Secondly, most of these licenses require access to the server, license server, which is in NIT. And that is the biggest challenge because outside NIT you can't access those for now. I asked the person in charge here, so what he's saying is that individual accounts can have some access, but that will be one-to-one basis. Like they will provide each and every one on personal request. So that won't be very practical if all of us go and ask for access, right? So we are also in talks that maybe we can create a central account, single account that you all can use. That will be just one account. So one server access will be granted. And maybe we can work it out in that way. But right now, so the talks are going on. So if that will be possible, maybe next computer applications lab, we will be also taking some live computer softwares uh, for you guys to work on, because in even in classes we will be demonstrating some, so that demonstration work is easy, I can do that. But to get the hands-on training you guys also have to have the, otherwise just seeing computer application or the computer softwares that you can do in YouTube also, so that's not a big deal. my main purpose for these classes is basically to train you guys or to get you guys used to these softwares, its limitations, its facilities, what you can do, what you can't do, and all. So some practice will be required for that. So I'm trying. So let's see. And hopefully, maybe in next few weeks, it will be done. So you all also can access that. Anyways, today what we will be doing is we will be moving ahead of the programming part, which will be again taking care on the lab when lab will be there on Thursday. And today we'll be seeing something about how computer applications can be applied in slope stability conditions. So now, because I think most of you are in slope stability class, so now you are starting to understand what is it to basically find the slope stability, the stabilization condition, the factor of safety, right? So doing that with help of computational methods like making a program or using other methods of computation, doing more complex stuff that we were doing just simply by manual calculation. So we'll be discussing what we can do in programming slope stability. We'll be discussing the concepts of limit equilibrium method. So what you were doing right now, the calculations that you were doing, those are called deterministic analysis. Deterministic, as I said, is something that gets us a particular value, a single value based on which we decide if this slope is stable or this slope is not stable, right? So deterministic approach, basically these can be very easily converted to programs that can calculate these values, because for program anything that gives us a single value is easy, but the complexity increases as the condition increases, condition becomes complex. So like right now we were assuming an ideal case of a block uh, which slided along a single plane, so planar failure. So when complexity will increase, something like there will be a dislodged mass, maybe a soil or a distributed rock masses. There will be not a plane failure. There will be a group of planes or a wedge or a slide or a circular failure will be there. So how things will be done in that? So all this, the calculations we were doing for the planar failure, all these will be applicable even in um, even in the complex cases, but the way we calculate it will change, and that's where we will be using the help of computational softwares. So limit equilibrium method is one of these methods in which we do similar calculations but for complex stuff. So we'll be discussing about that, and if time permits today, I think it will. What do you have next class? Okay. Biswal is there, huh? Okay. So we'll see if time permits. We will touch on that how this can be done with a software called Slide. So that is very useful software, and much of the work we will also do in there. Hold on, guys. I have some disturbances. Okay. Yeah. So let's move ahead. So yeah, we were seeing these kind of examples in our rock slope technology class, right? A simple planar failure with a block sliding over it. It basically is a very idealistic condition, but generally, as we have discussed, we saw that complexity as many cases emerge out of it, where even water or tensile cracks can be introduced, hydrostatic pressure can be introduced, even the bolting can be done or anchoring can be done. So many cases were there that we discussed, and we saw how in each case, by tweaking simple concepts and keeping the overall concept same, that we basically have to find the ratio of resistive forces to the driving forces. We found in each case what is the factor of safety, right? I think today's that's why I wanted to do that assignment today, so that we can take these examples and take these step forward in the computational aspects here. So now that we have this idea that how calculation wise what formulas will be there. So in this case, basically a complex phenomena with hydrostatic pressure with tension tensile bolts will have something like this kind of formula, right? So in this case, what we understand now is that we have the process part here very clear, right? If we see if we visualize a flow chart of activities, what we can do in this. So something like very simply, we can see there are very distinct input, very distinct process, and very distinct output sections that are being made in this kind of analysis that we were doing in our assignment and in our rock science class, rock slope class. So what was that? Inputs are basically simple. Some geometrical inputs are there: height of the slope, angle of the slope, angle of the slide, area of contact. These are some of the inputs we are getting. We are also getting some of the inputs like cohesion, friction angle, right? Some of the inputs we are getting, we have a list of inputs that we can get, right? We have these formulas that maybe a step before this directly calculating factor of safety, we have to calculate the weight, like in those examples we were doing, right? We calculate the weight of the block. We calculate the force that the weight exerts weights in terms of newtons, right? We convert all those conversions we have to do. And then we basically find the factor of safety in each case. Now there may be output. So output is factor of safety 1. And we were also having some questions where we found what is the required tension, overall tension in these bolts, right? And I was also hinting on what kind of questions can be there where number of bolts are given and then we have to find out the individual tensions, or the number of the capacity of each bolt is given, so how many number of bolts will be there, something like very simple division problems after what we have already done. So these kind of problems, so we can see how this can be actually converted into a very nice, very easy and very clear cut programming algorithm or programming flowchart. So we have these inputs, we have the process of these formulas and calculations, we have the output we know. So what I would want you guys to do now is because now we have basically got into some basic programming, very basic programming we have got, right? That what are the way to input in MATLAB, right? What is the way to process in MATLAB? What is the way to print output in MATLAB? So very basic programming we have already seen. We have already seen if and if then else statement, right? We have seen loops, for loop, while loop, right? So in using these very simple components of a program, I think we can easily make programs to solve these kind of issues, solve these kind of problems, where if we have been given some inputs, we process those and we find out the output of factor of safety, tension on bolts, and so on, whatever is asked for us. So, for the next for Thursday's lab, what I would suggest is we make few programs and we write these programs in terms of MATLAB, and we use the questions from the rock science technology, rock slope technology assignment that we were discussing on, right? So the 3 questions that I was thinking we can work on are second, third, and fourth. These are simple questions that basically require us to find out the geometries, find out the weights, find out the factor of safety, and sometimes find out the tension. So I will upload this. Don't worry, these individual questions I will upload. And what I want you guys is I want a MATLAB program that is working. Not we can try it out on online. You can try it out on your MATLAB that is installed. Try to do it systematically. if you can do it in a way that you make a flow chart or an algorithm out of it, and first and then make a program, that will be much easier for you guys. It will be intuitive as well if you are missing something, or you can plan the program very well. Otherwise, if you have those, you are used to programming, then go for it. Sky is the limit in this case. Make a good program, make a attractive program that will basically ask the user to input these parameters like cohesion, friction, what are the dimensions, right? Uh, then in each case, for each of the program, you can either you can create programs for each of these questions, or if you can create a versatile program that can cover all these questions, I would be really impressed. So try it out, whatever you can and your capacity. The least that I expect is you make one program for each of these questions, and uh, ask the user what is already given in the question, the inputs that are given, right? Calculate those as you are doing in your assignment, and give the output as the question is there, like whatever the question asks, factor of safety, or in dry condition, wet condition, or whatever the question asks, like tension and all. So either three good programs for each, or a combined, very nicely versatile program that can cover all this. So that's up to you. Okay, so this will be your assignment, and will can we can we discuss this on Thursday? Is that okay? Thursday, I think you can do, right? Today is Monday. So Tuesday, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, Wednesday, no classes are there, I hope, right? So Thursday in lab class, we will be discussing this. So I will be uploading this today, so you guys can work on it. Okay. Uh, yes, perfect. Okay, so I'll move on now. Today, what we'll be discussing is something more complex. So now we were discussing about planar failures, or failure that will that we can easily find out with these set formulas. But what happens when a failure is a complex one, like this one? Here we see three examples of circular failure, right? In place of a single plane, sliding plane, we have a circular surface. Can anyone suggest anything that how these kind of problems can be actually calculated? Like what will be the approach? Uh, any intuitive approach that you can do, basically, because right now we know that we can have C, we can have phi, we can make a block slide, and we understand how it works, how the factor of safety can be calculated in that case. But if this is a circular failure, then how to basically approach this? Any of you guys can volunteer to basically, any ideas how to deal with this, how to deal with this kind of failure to find factor of safety or similar? Any ideas? Anyone?
Hello.
Yeah, Indrajit.
Sir,
Sir, in this circular failures, we can take the equilibrium of a moment equilibrium also.
Okay, right. One important part is moment, because now this will be rotating as well, correct? And anyone else?
Center of gravity will also change. Means the position we can calculate.
Yes. Center of gravity will keep on changing as this object slides, as well as based on what kind of geometry it is there, the place we apply weight on will change. That is true, right? Any other way, any intuitive way other than this we can think of? That is correct, Indrajit. We have to consider those conditions. Anyone has any other way to deal with this? I'll try to simplify our. See, we know right now that planar failure, how it works, right? When we go for a plane failure, it works in certain way, correct? Can we, in any way, think about a method in which the same concept of planar failure can be applied in a circular scenario? Can you think about any way in that sense? Any ways in which a planar failure concept can be applied into a circular failure? When will a circle become so circular surface act as a uh, similar to a plane? When will that condition be? Any idea?
So when the radius of the circle is very big.
Who is this? Rohan.
One sir.
Yeah, Rohan, perfect answer. When the radius of the circle becomes keep on increasing, right? The ultimately we reach a plane, right? That will happen sometime or the other. However, in our scenarios, we can't have that like almost infinite radius circles, right? That is a planar failure. But the concept behind getting a plane when the radius increases can be converted into doing a similar analysis of planar behavior, planar failure in the circular failure as well. How? If we what we are doing when we are increasing the radius is basically we are focusing on a smaller and smaller arc of that circle, right? If we have an arc and we keep on focusing on a smaller area, so this is a big arc, right? If I see in the first figure, this is a arc maybe around subtended around maybe like almost 90 degrees or something, right? Maybe. If I keep on decreasing the angle, basically by increasing the radius, what is happening is the effective degree that I am seeing, the effective arc angle that I'm seeing is decreasing. And since uh, the arc length is basically related to radius and the angle, and arc length is constant, so the angle subtended will keep on decreasing as the radius increases. So what Rohan was saying was, in case we keep on increasing the angle, the arc will keep on becoming flatter. However, since the arc length is constant here, what actually is happening is the angle that is subtended by that uh, so said center or the hypothetical center which is a part of this circle uh, will basically start to project a smaller and smaller and smaller angle, right? As small as it can get, the more planar the arc will be, and that's where we can actually come to a consensus that if it is if it is becoming sufficiently planar, we can actually apply the concepts of planar failure that we learned, right? So in order to do that, one thing is, as you said, as Rohan said, increase the radius. But in these senses, we cannot, because the circular failure will be this circular failure that here it is. How can we basically approach, how can we just focus on a smaller area? A very simple way to do it is basically breaking it into slices. So if we divide this whole circle into very many slices, it is, and we keep on decreasing the thickness of these slices. What is happening is we are basically dividing it into many planar failures, right? If you see in this figure, this circular section is basically divided into different slices, right? And this, if we take a slice and zoom it sort of and understand what are the forces that are basically active on that, we see how many different kind of forces are there on a single block. However, we now can assume with certain assumptions, certain approximations, that it is now a planar failure. See the alpha 1 angle, that is the alpha I angle that is there. So the alpha I angle basically denotes the plane at which it is this block is filling. So what we did, we basically knew how to do planar failure calculations. Now we have basically converted the whole slip circle or the circular failure into very many small planar failures, and that's how we basically approach this problem. Now manually doing this will take a lot of time, because here it has how many 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. It has 15 slices. 15 slices still, if you see, if you zoom on one of these slices, you will still see a small arc that is subtended. If we even want to reduce that arc and make it into more higher plane, we may have to go to even higher number of slices, maybe 30, maybe 60, maybe 100. So calculating all these forces, see how many forces are there. There is weight force. There is there will be the forces that are now applicable from the behind slice and the ahead slice. So inter slice forces will also be there, right? And other forces are already there. UV will be there, hydrostatic pressure will be there, friction will be there. All the same forces will be there. And in addition, there will be forces from the nearby slices as well. So calculating so many forces and doing it for like so many slices will be a lot of time consuming effort, and that's where our computational part comes in. So what we'll be doing here, we basically, when we cut these slices, we do an equilibrium analysis. Equilibrium analysis, what is done? Basically, the sum of forces for any slice to be basically stable, the sum of forces should be zero, right? Whatever forces are coming on it and whatever forces are being given by it, they should be zero. That's the condition of equilibrium, right? So when we apply this condition of equilibrium from the base slice to all the slices till the top of this failure, to the slope to the top of the slip circle, doing this whole analysis is called limit equilibrium method. So basically, we are under the limits of this failure, we are applying the equilibrium conditions, and this analysis, this way of finding if the slope is safe or not, basically this is called the limit equilibrium method of analysis. So these kind of analysis, we have dedicated softwares that can not only quickly but efficiently judge what are the forces that are being on each of these slices, and what is the overall safety for this given circular surface of failure, right? Now imagine the complexity where we are going through. If we have this slope, suppose our slope basically will be only the outer edge, that is this part, right? And this whole outer boundary. That's the slope we have. This slip circle, that is just an assumption that, okay, this slip circle may be the place where the circular failure will happen. Now understand the complexity of this situation. There will be so many slip circles. There can be a slip circle here, right? There can be a slip circle here, 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 and here, and so many. You have to basically do the same limit equilibrium analysis for all these slip circles. And as we see how complex the calculation will become, there will be so many slip circles, there will be so many slices, and each of these slices we have to basically calculate all those factors that we were doing for the single problem that we did today in our assignment. So That's where we use computational, our computational equipments and computational resources to basically do all this analysis, find out which of these slip circles that we are assuming so many are having the least factor of safety, and give the user that, okay, this is the probable slip circle, this is the depth. If suppose I have a slip circle that is very critical and that is here, so what is the depth, what are the extent of it, how high it is from the bottom or the top, right? How deep the slip circle goes. And as we have this knowledge that, okay, uh, this is the circular failure plane where which is very critical and we have to stop it, then only we can actually find which solutions can be applied. Can we actually go for a bolting pattern that we can basically hold this full with set of bolts like we were doing in our single wedge case, right? Can we do that? Or is it so deep that we can't do that? So then what to do? Either we have to basically improve these conditions of the soil. So we may have to do some other improvement. We have to do some other improvement in this upper area so that basically it gets stopped. Or maybe we are not able to do that. So we see where the toe is and we basically support the toe here with some external support so that this failure doesn't happen here, right? So many solutions. We will be discussing these when we talk about the solutions, but primary thing is that we have to know where the slip circles are, or the critical slip circles are, critical failure planes are. And now we understand how complex this issue is, or the calculations will be. So now we know why and how the computer part or the computational part comes up here, right? Okay, so we move on. Now, one of the part is how do we decide slip circle? What is the criteria? How we are deciding which slip circle to take? So there are many methods. One of the methods that we can use is using a grid type of pattern. You see here. So we assume a grid. A grid can be 10 by 10 points, 100 by 100 points, 1000 by 1000 points. And each of these grid nodes will basically act as a center of the circle. So if we take up, suppose here it is 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 6 by 7 nodes are there, right? Here. So in a grid of 6 by 7 nodes, you have 42 points where you have the centers, right? They are separated by some distance. There will be delta x here, delta z here, right? They will be separated by certain distance that we will be using for calculating how far is the radius from, how far is the center with respect to a overall maybe origin of the area, right? So we have these so many points of centers. Now, what the other variable is? We know the centers. Now we have the variable of radius. So for each center, we will have maybe 100 set of radius. So this same sort of circles can be drawn with a smaller radius with the same center, right? Concentric circles will be drawn with this, and they will keep on growing or reducing as per the requirement, and they will basically cover up a portion of the slope that we feel that a failure can happen in this place. So what generally a computer does is it in this method it takes a grid of or certain dimensions, maybe and have certain number of nodes, like in this case it has 42, and it does a certain increment of radius that will create a number of slip circles. Now, till what extent does the slip circle go? That is generally defined by boundary conditions. So what are boundary conditions? Boundary conditions are something that we say, okay, after this, we want our area to be not analyzed. So suppose if I say that this is the point after which I am thinking that, okay, uh, the failure might not happen. This is sufficiently sufficient. This is sufficient distance, maybe 40 meters, 45 meters distance. So I think whatever this failure might happen will happen only here. And I am putting another boundary condition that, okay, this is the boundary of the toe of the failure. So basically I have defined key within this region only, you try and find out as many slip circles as possible. That will give us different factor of safeties for the particular conditions, right? These boundary conditions are totally in our limit. We can actually make them back also, right? And even put it ahead of the slope. So basically the slip circles can go even further. So that is up to us to decide what we want. Sometimes what happens is these slopes are dump slopes. So we know that the base actually is already stable. So when base is stable, why would we want this base area to be basically analyzed? So if base is stable, we put our limits accordingly so that the circles below the base do not happen. That reduces our computation time, that reduces our a stress that we put on computer so that our analysis can be quick. Even other cases can be there for different types of boundary condition in this. We'll when we will be discussing all this in while discussing the software, we will be seeing how these things are done. What else is there for that before we can discuss actually? Okay, so just that was just an idea how things are done. Now what I will do is basically I will show you guys how actually this is done in a software. Okay, so be now take notes, be attentive a bit that how things are done, because these things you will be doing in some of the experiments that or the some of the lab classes that we'll be having later on. So one of the most popular softwares that we use is called Slide. Okay, Slide is a basically limit equilibrium based software only. So what we discussed right now, all these kind of calculations, this is designed to do that. The version you are seeing here is very old version because I had a crack of this, so I have this in my computer. Right now the version that is licensed to NIT, that renewal of these licenses are going on, so maybe we will have the updated one next time. But for now, this the concept remains same. The full fundamental remains same. Just the GUI has changed, the graphic user interface. So there the buttons are bigger, the menus are very stylish and so on. But all the concept is the same. Okay. So what before starting this, I would like to show you one very interesting paper. It's these guys basically have done a good descriptive analysis on the technical aspects of limit equilibrium methods. So where is it? Yeah. So what I will do is I will share this paper with you. This is a not very old paper. It's from 2014, not very recent paper as well. But yeah, generally what they have done is basically given an idea of what is the slice-wise factor of safety in limit equilibrium method. So this figure I took from them only. And what balancing and equilibrium forces we were talking about, they have basically given a full detail of these, which forces are acting, how these forces are in equilibrium, which equations we do for equilibrium forces. See the boundary conditions we were talking about, what are the boundary conditions, how they are applicable, right? And how to calculate the overall factor of safety, how the balancing is done, how the slicing is done, right? And all these fundamentals are there, and they have given few examples of how they had applied this. So this was there, some they use some software for that as well, like we are doing. The only thing what I want you guys to see is are the some of the equations and some of the calculations that they have given here, which will be useful for us when we think about how the mathematical aspects of this work. So don't every time see, using a software is easy for anyone. Anyone can use a software and find out some results and publish that. The difference between us and others is we know what is happening inside also. So whenever we talk about a software or discuss a software, uh, we will be trying to also see what is the fundamental behind it, right? And what are the conditions that are taken, what are the limits, or what are the uh, uh, boundaries of that software that beyond which it can't work, or something like that. So as an engineer, we need to know these because just learning software is not our work. So that's why I wanted to share this with you. Have a look, go through it. We can have some discussion if that is required, but I feel this is a very simplified explanation of what actually is going on. There are full books written on limit equilibrium method, so if anyone is interested, they can actually refer them. But I found this paper to be very simplified explanation of the whole concept of the slicing method in limit equilibrium. So yeah, I'll share this with you guys in MS Teams so you can have a look. Continuing with our work, you have good 15 minutes, so we'll be able to at least do some work, right? So this interface that you are seeing is an older version of it. Very small resolution is there, so maybe you guys have to strain a bit. So what happens is this area is basically, if you see, if this is divided into some rules on x and y axis, basically these are giving coordinates. So 0, 0 coordinate is somewhere below, right? And based on that, we basically first give a design, and then we do the analysis part. So before starting, we generally go for project settings. So what we want to do, we tell it. If we go for general, we see what are our units. What is the direction of failure? So we have to give it a direction which we want to, which we want our slope direction to be. So left to right, right to left, and so on. Data output, what we want, more data, we want less data, that's up to us. It doesn't change anyways the processing time, so why not? What are the methods? So the methods that we see here are basically various algorithms to calculate the equilibrium conditions. So what we were seeing in that paper, the paper which we just saw, is one of those algorithms. While there are many algorithms with some different empirical relations, some different formulas, some different ways of basically slicing or contacting the surfaces in between. So generally what we go for is as many as possible so that we can see uh, all the results in different methods, but that takes a little bit more time on slower computers. So Bishop and Jumbo simplified are two good ones. Jumbo corrected can be taken. and Spencer is good. So have a good look at literature also, what these methods are. These are basically algorithms which basically is smaller aspects of programming that are changed in each algorithm. So how the slicing will be done, what will be the thickness of the slices, on what basis these thickness of the slices will be determined, right? And how each and every slice is in contact with each other, what are the forces. So these certain algorithms are there to decide that how much force will be there, toppling force will be there, or contact sliding force will be there. So many things will be there, right? So all these are basically iterations of development of these methods. So what we look for when we choose a method is either its applicability, has it been done in our field, has it been used in our field, or if we are not sure, what we generally do is take these methods and see which is giving the least factor of safety. Why we go for the least factor of safety? In every kind of these conditions, we try and find which is the worst case scenario, and we design over that worst case scenario to at least get over the minimum requirement of our factor of safety or the design or the stabilization measures. So it's better to understand this, where these are applicable, which is best for our use. If we don't have that understanding, rule of thumb, go for the minimum one. Okay. So now we have these options which are you see in the convergence option. So convergence option basically defines how things will be done. Now number of slices we can define, 25 slices are there. We can maybe increase to 50. It's up to us what we want to do, right? Tolerance is something which is basically the difference in each iteration, how much when we iteration means the loops that are run, right? When a factor of safety is done, a factor of safety analysis is done, this all the circles that are made, all the grids that are generated, all the slices that are made, and all the equilibrium equations are done. These are done these are repeated one after the other, because each of these slices will exert some force on the other in one step, that will exert some force on the another in the next step, and so on. So to compute in each and every part, a loop is created that basically goes for the calculations again and again and again, updating each time how much force is exerted on the next one, how much force is exerted on the next one, and so on. Tolerance basically gives us a condition that, okay, if a change between one iteration to the next is below this limit, say 0.005, whatever its condition may be. In this case, it is about how much change in factor of safety is there. So if suppose in this case, if there is a change in factor of safety is less than 0.005 in each iteration, it will basically tell the software to basically now stop the loop, because that's where we have reached. So tolerance of 0.005 is good enough. We don't anyways go to that decimal value. We just generally take about 2 decimal values. So 0.005 tolerance basically gives us differences in factor of safety even on the 3 values part till 0.005. So we can increase, even if we want more accuracy, we can go for 0.001 or even higher degrees. So that's up to us. Computer is this software is able to do all the calculations. It's just that as we increase the number of calculations, the time will increase for each analysis. So that's up to us, and computational resource as well. So if our computer is capable, why not do more? So maximum iterations per cycle. So this is see the maximum number of iterations in the limit equilibrium for each slip surface. So 50 is what we have given, the 50 number of iterations. So there are two conditions now. Tolerance is one, that okay, if we reach a condition where factor of safety is not changing by this much, so stop. Or if we reach the limit of the loop cycle, so 50 loops cycle we have given, we can increase sometimes to 100 loops. That's okay, right? It's up to us. Groundwater conditions we will be discussing later on, how groundwater affects and what will be its effect, right? Transient, it's not required right now, but you can basically uh, stage your work. Stages is basically if you want analysis to be something like, okay, I have a pit. So in stage 1, I have reached a pit depth of suppose 10 meters. In stage 2, I have reached 20 meters, stage 3, 30 meters. So all this you can basically design in one go, and calculations can be done accordingly. So if we want to do that, maybe in later stages we will also do. So number of stages and what are the changes we can define here. Statistical analysis is something we will be discussing in our rock slope technology next. I was hoping we could start today, the probabilistic analysis, but we couldn't. So let's not put it today. There is something called sensitivity analysis as well. Very important thing. We'll be discussing both of these in our maybe rock slope technology only. So we'll do that there. And when we are done, maybe in next 2 classes, we'll come here and see how these are done. Okay, random number generations, because when you will learn probabilistic analysis, you will see there are certain requirements of random numbers to be generated. So there are very many algorithms to generate random numbers. Some of you who are familiar with compute complex these programming, so you know how random numbers are generated, and there are various functions to generate these random numbers. There are various algorithms even to generate these random numbers. So we can do that. We can give a seed value. We can do many things. So that we will be discussing later on when we do the statistical analysis. Design standards, actually design standards are something based on what are the standard code of practices are there. So when we do the stabilization analysis, there are certain codes according to which stabilization are there. So certain maybe BS has certain code that says that the bolts that will be used will have a separation of 10 meters or 5 meters, or these lengths will be constant, or the type of bolt that will be used has this tensile strength and so on. So if we put a design code, basically it will preset everything so that we just use the reinforcement according to the code. All this is this we can manually change when we are designing individually. So these are basically tailor-made. We do our manual inputs, so that's okay. Advanced, we'll see later on what are there. So some advanced settings are there when we go for some typical calculations. We can basically change these. And this is project summary, it was okay. So basically what we did was we tried to decide on the direction of the slope and the number of slices we want and number of iterations we want. Okay. So that was what main work was, the methods we want. So these were the main things were done when we do a general analysis we do. Okay, quickly now, because 5 minutes are there, what I will do is I will show you how a simple analysis can be done. So first of all, we give a boundary condition, boundary of the slope. So let's create a very manual boundary right now. These can be very perfectly made. But right now what I will be doing is, because I want to show you guys how things are done. Maybe I'll create a 2 or 3 benches slope, right? Yeah. So this I made just by manually doing it, but all this can be edited or actually input by using coordinate system. So we can give X and Y coordinates of this slope fully. And even we can import the data if we have from field. We can from field we can get some cross sections in AutoCAD. We can convert those cross sections into Excel, and we can import those here. Even we can import directly AutoCAD, so that also helps out. In this, I think it is import DXF file. So yeah, So DXF file can be imported. DXF is another format of storage in AutoCAD. So that can be done, right? So we can get the boundary anyways we want. Secondly, second thing is the material that is inside. So why we put the material properties is because the calculation of weight, the calculation of shear strength, cohesion, friction, all this is basically done by giving the material properties. Because for each surface, we can't give cohesion and friction individual values. So basically the computer calculates based on what kind of material it is. So in properties, if we go and we define material, we can define a good material. Maybe we will put it as limestone or sandstone. Let's say sandstone. Okay. Okay. And we can change its color. We can change it to brown. Hatch is not required. Unit weight is in kilonewton per meter square. What we were giving in 2100, so we can give 21 kilonewton per meter cube, sorry, meter cube. So unit weight is given. Now which strength criteria we use? Mohr Coulomb failure criteria is generally used, right? There are many failure criterias now, you see, and there is undrained conditions where phi becomes 0. There are no strength conditions. Basically we are doing water analysis. Then there are infinite strength if we want to make a very high strength material that we don't want in analysis. And isotropic strength. So there are so many ways in which we can generalize anisotropy, discrete function. So these are all different failure criteria that we can use to basically give us how the material will fail. So Hook-and-Brown failure criteria, we give UCS, M and S values. This is the equation for it. If we go for some other maybe Barton-Brown's failure criteria, Barton-Bendis, so this will be the equation. These, I think you might have heard something about these in rock mechanics. If you have not, you can go through. These are very many literature are available on the various failure criteria, right? So let me just have a Mohr Coulomb failure criteria with maybe cohesion of 5 kilonewton per meter square and friction angle of maybe 35. Let's keep it 35, right? Now we are not using water, so let's not put that, and that's it, because we are using Mohr Coulomb, so that becomes easy. So now it has changed its color. So now we know it has understood what we want, right? Now we create the grid that we were talking about. So if we want to add grid, the grid for finding the centers, so we can draw it manually. And there are options for auto grid also. So now we have drawn this grid. It will ask us how many in the X direction and how many in the Y direction. It has automatically calculated 22 by 19. So let's keep that way. We can change it as if we want to, but let's just do the analysis first. Okay, this is the grid. So there will be so many centers and they will draw the slip circles, right? And what else we need? That's it, I think. Let's save this file. Compute1. Okay. And to basically run it, we run compute. So it will basically open something like this and it will compute, right? And it has, when it has done computing, it will close, and you see this interpret option will open. If we open this interpret, so that based on what kind of computer you're using, it takes some time. So you see the whole grid is basically divided into some shade that is basically the safety factor contour. And what we are looking is the least factor of safety 1.24, which is coming on this slip circle. Okay, we had chosen 4 different criterias of calculation, so we can basically see what are the effect on other calculation criteria. So in Jumbo simplified, it is less 1.17. In corrected, it is okay. Spencer, it is 1.3. So if you see how similar slip circles are there. We can also see other slip circles, how they are behaving, and what are their factor of safeties and with respect to the contour time. So that's how we do a very basic factor of safety calculation for this. I will stop here because we are out of time now. But when we join tomorrow, we'll continue this and see how other options can be explored. In detail, we will discuss this. Okay. So if anyone has any questions right now, we can address those. Otherwise, we'll close the class for now. Right. Thank you, guys. I think this now what we are starting will be a much more interesting part, I feel, because we are basically solving the practical problems that we will be seeing in the mine scenarios. So slope stability, dump slope stability, mine slope stability is one of the major areas where we have to focus on. So this is the start that we have to. So we'll be keeping on looking, and I want you guys to basically get a hands-on training. So if we get the software license working, we'll share it, and the server issue is sorted, we'll share it with you. Otherwise, what I will do is, if it is not done in 1-2 weeks, I'll share a cracked version with you, so in order to at least practice and get to know how things work. Okay. So we'll do something. Don't worry. So that's it from my side. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming. I think you have another class next, so I want to stop you there. Please join them. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Yep.